got one that can see.
Yeah, I said we waging war. Fed up with this mess, I can't take no more. We've been lied to straight up from the door. History is his story, and that's for sure. We've been led down the wrong path, walking blind. Taught just to obey, don't use your mind. Evil globalists, them conniving swine. Got you all coked up and drunk on wine. It's the land of the lost, we surrounded by sleep stacks. Corrupt money makers that rob with fed tax. The backs of us poor men will soon be broke. Work your fingers to the bone, still feel no hope. Turn on the TV just so you can cope. Hypnotized and deceived by them fake news folks. Like I'm in a dark city, but I awoke. In the middle of their mind control plans, a cruel joke.
You've been asleep so long that you never even noticed the change. Got your mind in the dark with the program lines. Anything that they do is strange. You believe what they tell you to believe. In the system, born in the game. It's a dark city out there, but you still don't care. Fascinated by the fame.
I feel like we're in a world that's completely dark, no sunshine. Complete total dark 7 days at a time. More than half of the world sleep when they doing crime. If you awake, people say, man, you lost your mind. You're sick. Mason talk 32nd degrees. Don't want to hear any more conspiracy theories. But the fact is, Adolf Hitler tried to rule with no cash and poor education in school. You'd be a fool to believe the elite of this world. Don't want to rule every man, woman, boy, or girl. Born with a silver spoon in their mouth. They want more. Squeeze out the middle class, only rich and poor. Communism, fascism, socialism, insane. Made slaves of us all, that's the whole end game. Big control since birth, cradle to the grave. I'd rather die fighting for my rights than live as a slave.
You've been asleep so long that you never even noticed the change. Got your mind in the dark with the program lines. Anything that they do is strange. You believe what they tell you to believe. In the system, born in the game. It's a dark city out there, but you still don't care. Fascinated by the fame.
Here comes Mr. Quick, ready to implant my next life. This time, no kids, single man, no wife. Got me a job in a hotel, renting rooms. Thought you was a rich man, now you pushing brooms. Is it crazy or insane for me to assume they've been messing with my brain, trying to keep me in tune? Or groups stalking me, trying to make me paranoid? Or brainwashing me so my life is void? Psychological warfare, is this all true? Can they mind control people if they want to? Are the thoughts that I'm thinking really mine? In fact, is this really me? Is this how I really act? Have my views been shaped by TV and movies and music? You think Satan really would use this to make evil men go and use them this way? Remind me again what the Taylor Swift say? It's a thought that's completely insane. Like I'm gonna let my kids be raised by Lil Wayne or Jay-Z or Kanye West or Lady Gaga and end up on crack with baby mama drama. To some, this is based on a true story, like they've been trained just like sheep their whole life. This whole world's fabricated. If this was on TV, it wouldn't be PG, but R-rated.
You've been asleep so long that you never even noticed the change. Got your mind in the dark with the program lines. Anything that they do is strange. You believe what they tell you to believe. In the system, caught in the game. It's a dark city out there, but you still don't care. Fascinated by the fame. You've been asleep so long that you never even noticed the change. Got your mind in the dark with the program lines. Anything that they do is strange. You believe what they tell you to believe. In the system,
that you're missing. Some will accept what I say, some dismiss it. I'm talking about the gift of salvation freely given. He's living, walked on this earth, set free, nailed to the cross, shed blood for you and me. He arose from the grave and he conquered death. Gave us the Holy Spirit on the day he left. He shed his blood for each and every one of our sins. Not worthy of his grace, where should I begin? Don't worry about a thing, I keep my faith in him. Renew my mind, take a look at where I've been. I'm a sinner and straight up lost since day one. God loves us and gave his only begotten son, that whosoever believeth in him shall not perish but have life everlasting.
Your color don't matter no way, cause you're going to hell if you ain't saved. I don't wanna hear no more of it, I'm tired of the chatter. It ain't about black and white, lost souls matter. Color don't matter no way, cause you're going to hell if you ain't saved. I don't wanna hear no more of it, I'm tired of the chatter. It ain't about black and white, lost souls matter.
I don't think you understand the severity in this, so I'ma speak clearly so that you don't miss the opportunity to get saved, cause time's close. You know deep down God loves you the most, but Satan got tricks and traps in place to catch you, to keep you from God's face. Got you all out of sorts and acting all crazy, child of the devil like Rosemary's Baby. I see you tearing down statues and burning down buildings, but I'ma keep it real, we ain't all God's children, cause some don't like the Bible and some be God hating. See, I'm a child of God, but your father is Satan. God's waiting for you to change your ways and repent of your sins. Do it now so you won't regret not doing it today, because heaven you'll be missing and end up in hell because you don't listen.
Your color don't matter no way, cause you're going to hell if you ain't saved. I don't wanna hear no more of it, I'm tired of the chatter. It ain't about black and white, lost souls matter. Color don't matter no way, cause you're going to hell if you ain't saved. I don't wanna hear no more of it, I'm tired of the chatter. It ain't about black and white, lost souls matter. Color don't matter no way, cause you're going to hell if you ain't saved. I don't wanna hear no more of it, I'm tired of the chatter. It ain't about black and white, lost souls matter. Color don't matter no way, cause you're going to hell if you ain't saved. I don't wanna hear no more of it, I'm tired of the chatter. It ain't about black and white, lost souls matter. Color don't matter no way, cause you're going to hell if you ain't saved. I don't wanna hear no more of it, I'm tired of the chatter. It ain't about black and white, lost souls matter. Color don't matter no way, cause you're going to hell if you ain't saved. I don't wanna hear no more of it, I'm tired of the chatter. It ain't about black and white, lost souls matter.
My music started again or something. Well, I don't know what's happening. Are you playing this? Hey, whoa. My music started again or something. Whoa, hold on. I don't know what's happening. Are you... Okay. Can you hear me? Hello? All right, Joshua, are you there?
Yeah.
Okay, I am having some kind of issue. My software had an update, so I'm really sorry, everybody. There was a massive echo, and I don't know where it's coming from yet. So, anyway, welcome.
Is it working okay?
Well, everyone's going to have to tell me in the chat how I sound now. But yes, I stopped the echo, but I don't for the life of me know why it's doing that. And it never has done it before, and I had a recent update. But anyway, it seems to be fixed now. I'm not echoing anymore. I was hearing myself back through the computer over and over. It was very strange, but it seems to be...
I could kind of hear it earlier. Echo, echo, echo,
yeah.
echo.
Yeah,
Thank
don't
you,
know
Jackie.
why. Not sure.
Thank you for the feedback.
Yes, thank you, Jackie.
Is the screen already working?
Yes, we have a screen share already started that I can see. Let me get rid of that so that everybody can... Let me make sure it looks good on my end. Hold on just a second. I got to get rid of this chat box. And yeah, a little ill-prepared tonight. But hey, guys, go back and listen to that video from the beginning, and you'll see that we're still doing much, much better now than we were way back.
Yeah, thanks for the re-upload there. So, again, my intention is to try and do a Thursday, Friday thing or something like that. Kind of maybe focus on news on the Thursday one, and then that way we can focus more on Bible study for the Friday or Saturday. Since, it's the Sabbath and all. So, since we didn't do a Thursday show, however, maybe we'll re-upload old Solomon reports since they all got wiped out by the YouTube. So that's the plan, and so far we've stuck to it, except I forgot to do bingo. So we'll talk about bingo again. The idea is to make I think we should maybe go with 7 by 7. So that way it's 49, and we can, make it symbolic of Pentecost. And this is a good time anyway. Passover hasn't actually hit yet. So, we can maybe try to do it for next week. But the idea would be to try and maybe make a 7 by 7 bingo card and cover the topics that you think that we would cover. You can win with 4 corners, which is a reference to the King of the Four Corners, or you could win with 7 straight, which are emblematic of the feast days. And then the center is a free space. And I guess blackout would be the other option to win. But you'd have to play the same card a couple times probably to black one out like that. So you can keep using the same card every week until it wins, I guess. But then when it does win, you can't recycle any of the things that were on the cards. So, there's a little bit of strategy involved there.
By the way, somebody donated $100 towards the prize to winner. So if we want to break that up, $25 a piece or $50 for 2 times, but we need to get people a little bit more interactive and tell us if they're going to make one of these, because that person has donated their money to let there be prizes for this. So we really want you guys to get involved, whether it's silver or more knives or whatever we there's lots of things we can do. I got new silver ounces today that are 007 diamonds are forever, and they're bars and not rounds, so they're kind of cool. Something to be a good prize.
Cool. Yeah, I have a few things in mind as well. I'm going to do another run of t-shirts here soon. So maybe I can put like a QR code or something that links to the show.
I don't think I ever got my shirt. Didn't I say I wanted one?
Well, I got one left, and I didn't want to run out of the last run I did. So I went through, I think, 11 of them, 11 out of the 12. So I got to do another run. However, they're having some issues with the like shirts and stuff. So there's a little bit of a supply issue there with the local place. So I'll see what I can do. But on one sleeve, I was wanting to put parable of the cow and the cicada on the right sleeve, like where people would be getting these injections, And then on the other side, maybe we can put a link to the Solomon Report or something like that. But then it's got the verse from Revelation 13, 16 through 18 on the back with the cicada on the front. So I'll mock up some more shirts, and those will be bingo prizes too. But anyway, we got a pretty cool lineup of things to talk about this evening. And we're moving into the true new year, the time of Nisan. In fact, today happens to be Nisan 1. So we will be, and it's a lot about the Lamb here. So, without further delay, let me get this going. And I got some stuff down here to show too. Whenever we maybe get toward the end here, I want to revisit the Great American Eclipse significance. So maybe when we get here to Revelation 6 right here, we'll be talking about that here in a little bit. In regards to the Lincoln penny, the wheat penny, also the Testament of Solomon as it relates to the Abraham symbolism, and then also the Janus penny. We've talked about that in the past, and how it can relate also, and got a link here on Ukraine, and particular how it relates to the breadbasket of Europe and how it can tie to the prophecies we see here in Revelation 6:6. And have a link here where we'll talk about what the word for worship actually means. It means to work, avad, and how that too ties into the mark of the beast. And then we'll revisit something from Genesis 49 here, where it talks about the serpent Dan and how that can relate. Oh yeah, there was one verse I needed to get. Excuse me. It's Song of Moses. So if you could, I'm going to send this to you real quick. If you could find this for me. I didn't get this link up before the show. And then that'll be everything. So I'll go ahead and start here with the time and date. Here I'm trying to find the chat. I got way too many windows open. Okay, here it is. I want to send it to you on Skype. That's the text. If you could find me the link, I'd appreciate it. All right, so without further delay, we'll go to time and date.
What am I supposed to look for with this?
I don't know what verse it is. I think it's Exodus, but I don't know what chapter. I mean, I could just read it, but I wanted to be able to share it. All right, so here's the link for everybody in the chat. So this is the night sky over Jerusalem. So you go to this website, timeanddate.com, and you can actually get an idea of what the night sky looks like above Jerusalem. I set that for the location. And of course it also shows you what constellations are in the night sky above them. So right now they have Cassiopeia. This was the mother of Andromeda. So in the story of Pegasus, where he slays Medusa, and then Pegasus comes up out of her body, and then he uses that to fly to free Andromeda from the rock. Well, Cassiopeia was her mother. They consigned her to death by chaining her to a stone. So anyway, that's maybe some significance to look through. And then it shows here the various planets, their rising times, and the only one that's not visible right now is Mercury. And so now that we visited that, okay, so again, this is April 2nd on our calendar, but Nisan 1, 5782 on the Hebrew calendar. And today is also, it was a 0% new moon yesterday on April Fool's Day. So today is possibly when the moon would have enough light to blow the shofar. And so that would be, so the first witness to witness the first light of the moon would blow their horn. Then a second witness, when they saw it, would blow their horn. And that would begin the new month. And then this month also centers around the barley harvest. So whenever the barley was ripened, you would harvest it and thresh the wheat and then winnow it. And then you would take, about a handful. You'd take that to the temple as your first fruits offering. So this time of year is meant to be modeled around that harvest. And the light of the first moon begins the first month. So technically, if you were to look outside tonight, you should see a sliver of the moon. And that's also two horns, when because you're blowing the horns. So anyway, a lot of symbolism packed into that. The feast days are really cool, and we've made that the cornerstone of, the Solomon Report. So I'd like to encourage everybody to look at the symbolism that's inherently contained within the festivals there. So
Exodus 15, chapter 15 is where that is, and I dropped a link and some of the verses there for everybody.
Okay, well, toward the end of the show, we'll be singing that song of deliverance. So look forward to that at the end.
Do you want me to drop that link in your chat too, or do you have everything?
Well, I can read it. I just didn't know which it was, so sharing the link was good. Thank you. I don't need to open it, I don't think. Okie dokie. So this day is packed with a lot of content. So I'll try to read through this, but then we're going to do the Tehillim, the Psalms, and then we'll be doing the Torah portion. So those are up here. Do you want to read any of this, or do you just want me to read it?
Go ahead. I'm going to be kind of trying to remember to get in the show notes times and stuff here as well, which I didn't do last time, so apologies everybody, but I'm going to try and get that done today.
Oh yeah, I forgot. That goes into the description, right?
Yep, in the description box.
Okay, well this would be the for the day of, the Jewish calendar day of. This followed the time and date. Okay, so Jewish history, creation of man in thought, 3761 BCE. The Talmud, Rosh Hashanah. This Ha means the, Shana refers to year. So Rosh Hashanah would be head of the year. Cities, which, by the way, the civil calendar does this in September, but that's clearly the 7th month, not the 1st month. So you actually have two heads of the year. You have the civil head of the year, which is in September, when Judgment Day occurs at the temple. And then you have the other head of the year, which is the ecclesiastical head of the year, that has to do with trees, crops, things like that. That is the spring in Nisan. And he tells Moses this as well. So they actually do it reverse nowadays. Anyhow, the city's two opinions as to the date of God's creation of the universe. According to the Rabbi Elazar, the world was created in Tishri. See, they're saying that it was created in September that month. So it could be that it was created then, but then there was no real life until the Nisan, which would mean that like over the winter, there was nothing until spring. But anyway, this is what he's saying. The world was created in Tishri, September, the 6th day of creation, the day on which Adam and Eve were created, was the 1st of Tishri. So he's saying it was technically in September, but as the 1st of Tishri may not be the 1st of September. It typically begins like a week or two before what we would consider September. Celebrated each year as Rosh Hashanah. According to Rabbi Joshua, the world was created in Nisan. Okay, so we actually got both arguments here. That's kind of funny. Okay, so my name's Joshua, so I also agree that it may not be, it's one or the other, but I guess it could be. Anyway, as interpreted by the Kabbalists and the Hasidic masters, the deeper meaning of these two views is that the physical world was created in Tishri. Okay, that makes sense. While the thought or idea of creation was created in the month of Nisan. Okay, so that does make sense, because the temple is on earth, and it's the receptive part of the spirit, which is in Nisan. So really it's spirit and earth, heaven and earth in a sense. Or the lamb's blood on the altar, which was the first mound of earth, the first mountain to be created over the surface of the deep. That is basically Tishri. That would be the altar. And the lamb's blood that was slain on top of that altar, that's Nisan. So the combination of the two are the equinoxes brought together. So when we read in Esther, it talks about the 180 days, I think, of feasts. That's that span from spring to fall. Okay. This is a really interesting part here. The patriarchs. It's dated here 1813 through 1506 BCE. According to the Talmud, the three patriarchs of the Jewish people, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, all were born and passed away in the month of Nisan. That's kind of interesting. So continues here. Jewish calendar inaugurated 1313 BCE. On the 1st of Nisan of the year 2448 from creation, 1313 BCE, 2 weeks before the Exodus, which we'll be talking about the Exodus tonight, God showed Moses the crescent new moon and told him, so it'd be just like a night just like tonight. When you see the moon like this, sanctify the new month. This ushered in the first Jewish month and commenced the lunar calendar Jews have been following ever since. So think how auspicious it is to look out at the sky tonight and see exactly what Moses saw, on that particular night that many years ago. So when you take time to observe these times, you're reenacting what is actually in the Bible. And that's the whole point, is that all these stories are meant to help us understand how God has moved in the lives of people before us, and how we can also be that today, the body of Christ, as it were. This continues with the Mishkan inaugurated 1312 BCE on the 8th day, following this a 7-day training and initiation period. The portable Mishkan, or tabernacle. This is the one that was made in the wilderness, by the way, not the stone one that has been destroyed twice. It was built by the children of Israel in the Sinai desert, and it was erected. Aaron and his sons began serving as priests. This is where we get what they refer to as a priest today, the Cohen. Aaron and his sons began serving as priests, and the divine presence came to dwell in the Mishkan. This is the Spirit of God. Special offerings were brought, including a series of gifts by Nashon ben Amminadab, the prince of the tribe of Judah. Similar offerings were brought over the next 11 days by the other tribes of Israel. So again, when I was talking about how they would bring their grain to the temple, this is like basically talking about that. And so what we see as today is tithing, giving to the pastor, is the same thing here, where folks are bringing their offering to the temple where Aaron's priests are. And so they don't work. They're just priests for the other tribes. So they're basically paying their tithes to the priests here. And then also God gets the first bite of your crop, right, in that sense. Okay, it's continuing here to talk about the death of Nadav and Abihu, 1312 BCE. On the day the Mishkan was inaugurated, Nadav and Abihu, the sons of Aaron, took each of them his censer and put fire in it, and put incense on it, and offered strange fire before God, which he commanded them not. A fire went out from God and consumed them, and they died before God. Wow. So even Aaron's sons, two of them did something that they were not supposed to do. They took a censer and put fire in it and put incense on it and offered strange fire before God, and he commanded them not. So he consumed them. That's pretty wild. So they, being priests, were first fruits. So God consumed some of the first fruits here for doing things that he commanded them not to do. Kind of another example of that would be like when it talks about Moloch and sacrificing people into the fire and stuff. He's like, I never told you to do that. It never even came into my mind, So this is another example of that where, hey, what are you guys doing? I didn't ask for this. But they do end up doing an incense thing on the altar in the Holy of Holies as a part of the Mishkan construction, but they must have not followed the rules exactly. By the way, this is why they tied a cable tow around the ankle of the priests, is because if they didn't do something properly, the divine presence would strike them dead, and they would have to be dragged out by that cable tow that was tied around their ankle. So this stuff's pretty serious. Okay, laws and customs. Parashat HaKadesh. This means first day, new month. On the Shabbat that falls on or before the first of Nisan, a special reading called HaKadesh, Exodus 12, 1 through 20. We'll go ahead and copy that real quick. Drop. This is added to the regular Shabbat Torah reading. HaKadesh recounts God's historic communication to Moses in Egypt on the 1st of Nisan, just like today, 2 weeks before the Exodus, regarding the Jewish calendar, the month of Nisan, and the Passover offering. So this is quite an auspicious day, quite literally. Let's at look at that, because this is what would be added. So where we normally read our Torah portion every week, this would be added. All right, so let's see here. HaKadesh in a nutshell. This will kind of get the point across. Maybe we won't read it all, but it doesn't look like it's too long. Okay. I'll go ahead and share this too. Oh, look at that, 74477 and the link. We got to read it. Like I say, Exodus 12, 1 through 20 is what this is referencing. This being the Shabbat that falls on or before the first of Nisan. We also read the section of HaKadesh, which relates, well, that's just a retelling of what I said earlier. Sorry. Here's what's new, however. God also instructs to bring the Passover offering, to eat it with the matzah and bitter herbs, and abstain from leaven for 7 days. So this is like yeast. And remember, when the Feast of Unleavened Bread is when they left in such haste from Egypt during the Passover and in this period of time, that they couldn't have they didn't have yeast, so they couldn't have bread that had risen. Right. So this is a remembrance. Hey, you need to be ready to leave at a moment's notice. So in a time like this, when we're all waiting on a rapture, right, a second Exodus, which is foretold in Isaiah 11, this is the kind of attitude we need to have. We need to be ready at any moment to be harvested by the strong right arm of the Lord. So wasn't that part of your title? By the way,
it was part of the title. It's on the thumbnail, but I hadn't put it in the title of the video, but I can.
No, it's cool because I didn't even mention that to you, and you put it in there, and yet that's exactly what we're talking about. So I just thought it was kind of cool. So yeah, and mind you that when those folks were in Egypt laboring while they were there working, which again we're going to talk about the word for work right here, avad, which today is interpreted as worship, or literally means to work for. So at the time of the Exodus, they were working for Pharaoh and in very harsh conditions where they weren't even getting a day off. And so imagine working for 7 days straight and never getting a day off, and then your labor being made so intense that then you're getting punished and you're not making your quotas, etc., etc. Well, this is when Jehovah harvested those people out of Egypt with his strong right arm, and then shepherded them across the Sinai Peninsula, and then parted the waters and the Sea of Reeds, which we're going to read about that as well, and led them into the Promised Land eventually after a purification period of 40 years, I think it was. And this was the time during which they were fed manna and things like that, which again goes back to this leavening of bread. The manna would be an example of angel food, right? Angel food bread with no leaven. So, and I did some thinking on that. They were being fed the bread from the table in the tabernacle of heaven, which really blows my mind, because we get a story of when David and his troops fed on the bread from the tabernacle. And some people would look at me like real shocked and be like, "Oh, what are you doing?" But that was the Lord's army in a sense, right? So it was permitted in that instance. But or the priests in that case. Anyway, that's that link there. So this is a really important time of year for the feast days. And, there's some in rapid succession here with the Feast of First Fruits, Passover. First Fruits would be a reference to this barley offering that you're bringing. The meal, it's not really supposed to be like a potluck or anything. I mean, it's matzah and bitter herbs, but you're eating this like cake that's made from barley. And that's, if the barley is not harvested at a certain time, it can be off. It has to be matured, and then it's processed and made into like a bread type of cake, but without leaven. And that's eaten, and then the Passover and unleavened bread. So that's why in the story that we're reading about in Exodus, it would be just days after this that, can you imagine getting a lamb right now and bringing it inside for a few days, and the Lord's like, "Hey, inspect this lamb, gain affection for it." So imagine bringing a lamb in, giving it a name, and inspecting it for blemishes, and then after 3 days you slay it, and you're taking the blood of that lamb and putting it on your door. And that's so that the destroyer will pass over your house, and he's taken the firstborn of all the other families, which are the first fruits, because it's your first son that would go to the temple to be a priest. So it's really, really interesting to see these elements at play. And then they were led out in such haste, again, referencing the unleavened bread. So these three feast days are very much emblematic of the second Exodus. We have to also be ready to flee captivity. All right, so let's move on to the Tehillim. Oh, wait, there was one more thing. I got off track and missed something I was wanting to read. This blessing of blooming trees here. This is what they call a special mitzvah, which is like a good commandment. It's like most of the commandments are like, don't do this, but this is an example of like, well, do this, I think. A special mitzvah, which can be fulfilled only once a year, is to recite the Berachah, blessing or prayer, made upon seeing a fruit tree in bloom. So I've been noticing a lot of trees in bloom lately. So when you could see that, okay, it's time to say this. Blessed are you, God, our God, King of the universe, who left nothing lacking in his world and created within it good creatures and good trees, with which he gives pleasure to people. Today is the first opportunity to make this blessing, but it can be done anytime during the month of Nisan, referred to by the Torah as the month of spring. Many visit botanical gardens during this time so as to avail themselves of an opportunity to observe this beautiful mitzvah. So again, a good commandment. It's just something to do. So anyway, that was the one thing I wanted to do on here. Let's go ahead and move on. Are you able to hear me okay?
I can hear you fine, and I don't think I'm having any echo problems because nobody said anything in the chat.
All right, cool. Would you like to read now, Meow?
Meow, I can.
Oh, wait a second. Is this correct? Psalms chapters 1 through... Oh, okay. Well, I didn't realize. Yeah, go ahead with chapter 1 here, I guess.
All right. Psalms chapter 1. This psalm inspires man to study Torah and avoid sin. One who follows his path is assured of success in all his deeds, whereas the plight of the wicked is the reverse. Verse 1. Fortunate is the man that has not walked in the counsel of the wicked, nor stood in the path of sinners, nor sat in the company of scoffers. Rather, his desire is in the Torah of the Lord, and in his Torah he meditates day and night. He shall be like a tree planted by streams of water, that yields its fruit in its season, and whose leaf does not wither, and all that he does shall prosper. Not so the wicked. Rather, they are like the chaff that the wind drives away. Therefore the wicked will not endure in judgment, nor sinners in the assembly of the righteous. For the Lord minds the way of the righteous, but the way of the wicked will perish.
Yeah, that's really interesting, because in verse 4 here it's talking about the chaff. The chaff would be what would be left over after the barley was harvested, threshed, and then winnowed. What would be left would be chaff. So like, the hull and such. Chapter 2, this psalm warns against trying to outwit the ways of God. It also instructs one who has reason to rejoice to tremble, lest his sins cause his joy to be overturned. Why do nations gather and people speak futility? The kings of the earth rise up, and rulers conspire together against the Lord and against his anointed. Let us sever their cords and cast their ropes from upon us. He who sits in heaven laughs. My master mocks them. Then he speaks to them in his anger and terrifies them with his wrath. It is I who have anointed my king upon Zion, my holy mountain. I am obliged to declare, the Lord said to me, you are my son. I have this day begotten you. Ask of me, and I will make the nations your inheritance, and the ends of the earth your possession. Smash them with a rod of iron, shatter them like a potter's vessel. Now be wise, you kings, be disciplined, you rulers of the earth. Serve the Lord with awe and rejoice with trembling. Yearn for purity, lest he become angry and your path be doomed. If his anger flares for even a moment, fortunate are all who put their trust in him. That's really interesting, because in Revelation it talks about the birthing of the man-child, the body of Christ, and them being given a rod of iron. That's just really interesting. Chapter 3, you want to read that? Yeah.
Yes, chapter 3. When punishment befalls man, let him not be upset by his chastisement, for perhaps, considering his sins, he is deserving of worse, and God is in fact dealing kindly with him. Verse 1. A psalm by David, when he fled from Absalom, his son. Lord, how numerous are my oppressors. Many rise up against me. Many say of my soul, there is no salvation for him from God, ever. But you, Lord, are a shield for me, my glory, the one who raises my head. With my voice I call to the Lord, and he answers me from his holy mountain. Selah. I lie down and sleep. I awake, for the Lord sustains me. I do not fear the myriads of people that have aligned themselves all around me. Arise, O Lord, deliver me, my God, for you struck all my enemies on the cheek. You smashed the teeth of the wicked. Deliverance is the Lord's. May your blessing be upon your people forever.
Baruch Hashem. Yeah, that's the whole essence of Passover and Exodus right there. Chapter 4. This psalm exhorts man not to shame his fellow, and to neither speak nor listen to gossip and slander. Envy not the prosperity of the wicked in this world. Rather rejoice and say, if it is so for those who anger him, how much better it will be for those who serve him. For the conductor, with instrumental music, a psalm by David. Answer me when I call, O God, who knows my righteousness. You have relieved me in my distress. Be gracious to me and hear my prayer. Sons of men, how long will you turn my honor to shame? Will you love vanity and endlessly seek falsehood? Know that the Lord has set apart his devout one. The Lord will hear when I call to him. Tremble and do not sin. Reflect in your hearts upon your beds and be silent forever. Offer sacrifices in righteousness and trust in the Lord. Many say, who will show us good? Raise the light of your countenance upon us, O Lord. You put joy in my heart, greater than their joy, when their grain and wine abound. In peace and harmony I will lie down and sleep, for you, Lord, will make me dwell alone in security. Chapter 5, Aaron.
Chapter 5, a prayer for every individual, requesting that the wicked perish for their deeds and the righteous rejoice for their good deeds. Verse 1. For the conductor on a nekalot, not sure, a psalm by David. Give ear, a musical instrument that sounded like the buzzing of bees. Okay. Give ear to my words, O Lord. Consider my thoughts. Listen to the voice of my cry, my King and my God, for to you I pray. Lord, hear my voice in the morning. In the morning I set my prayers before you and hope. For you are not a God who desires wickedness. Evil does not abide with you. The boastful cannot stand before your eyes. You hate all evildoers. You destroy the speakers of falsehood. The Lord despises the man of blood and deceit. And I, through your abundant kindness, come into your house. I bow toward your holy sanctuary in awe of you. Lead me, O Lord, in your righteousness because of my watchful enemies. Straighten your path before me. For there is no sincerity in their mouths. Their heart is treacherous. Their throat is an open grave, though their tongue flatters. Find them guilty, O God. Let them fall by their schemes. Banish them for their many sins, for they have rebelled against you. But all who trust in you will rejoice. They will sing joyously forever. You will shelter them, and those who love your name will exult in you. For you, Lord, will bless the righteous one. You will envelop him with favor as with a shield.
Yeah. It reminds me of that mentioning of how he protects us like a hen would shield its chicks. Kind of think of that there.
And the shield of faith.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
From
Ephesians.
Yes, 6. Ephesians 6, 10 through 20 mainly is where I like to read.
I won't have time to talk about it tonight, but maybe next week. Something I was wanting to cover is in the Jack and the Beanstalk story, or Jack the Giant Killer. He has certain pieces of armor that I'm of the opinion that it kind of relates to the armor of God. And because he's conquering a giant in the story, and that's the arch enemy of Yahweh, and the Holy Land was the giants. So I think it's really interesting. So we can talk about that next week.
Can I read a question here in the chat?
Oh, sure, yeah.
It says, am I wrong, or did what Jesus warned of to flee and pray that your flight is not in winter happen in 70 AD when this temple was destroyed? And the temple was destroyed, not one stone. I'm not sure. Does that make sense? Does that question make sense?
Yeah. And so that's the story of the Maccabees. So when that abomination of desolation took place, Antiochus Epiphanes brought the Greek army down into Jerusalem because they didn't want to, I think they didn't want to pay taxes or something like that. And so he brought the army down. Oh yeah, they were trying to convert them through Hellenization, which is basically where they wanted to make them do pagan rituals essentially and abandon their own feast days. This is why the feast days are so important, in my opinion, is because it's what connects you to the divine presence, which was what was summoned into the temple. So they wanted you to abandon that and take their gods instead, and the people wouldn't do that. So that's what brought Antiochus Epiphanes upon them. And, or excuse me, that's the first time perhaps. I think the second time was when Rome came in 70 AD. Sorry about that. But the Maccabees story was a prototype of then the one that came. And so, yeah, when he's referencing pray that your departure not be in winter, we're talking about the Hanukkah type story in a sense there too. Which, by the way, remember the Pokemon, I forget what we call it, snake bite. Got all these different names for the thing that's going on around right now. Do not take those things. Here, I'll just type it in the chat. So that began in December. So go back and look at when that was announced. And so that also makes me think, well, if we are the temple now, and then that's coming against our temple, right? Which is that man-child that was born in 2017, 9/23/2017. And it was only 2 short years after that, then this comes. And of course, Enza, it's influenza. And we know that Enza refers to giant. So again, that theme of giants coming where, so I think that it qualifies for the abomination of desolation, because what was done in that act was a desecration of God's temple by sacrificing other creatures, which other creatures are used in the snake bite. So food for thought. I mean, there's no good reason to take it anyway, but this is kind of fulfilling some of those things. However, it is worthwhile to mention that the destruction did occur at 70 AD, but that was one of 2, and that was a block temple that was destroyed. But there was actually another one in the wilderness. So if you count that one, technically the one that was destroyed in 70 AD would have been like a third temple, essentially. So the one in Sao Paulo, Brazil, would even then be a 4th temple, and we've yet to see a 5th. But the one that everybody thinks will be the 3rd will actually technically be the 5th. And the one in Sao Paulo, Brazil is actually 4 times bigger, I think. I could be wrong about that.
And the one in Sao Paulo, Brazil is the picture that we have in the beginning when we first have our 10-minute wait. And by the way, I will try to make some more fun and interactive, well, not interactive, I shouldn't say that, more fun intros I'm thinking about. I've been making some notes, but yes, rather than just music and an image. But the image that you always see when we start is the Brazilian temple.
Well, again, I think they'll probably try and build a 3rd one. Personally, that's just my intuition, perhaps speaking there. But we'll see an abomination, a desolation at the very least. So again, if we're the temple, that's already happening. So I don't think we actually have to see the building be built, because it's happening already. Now, that said, there is something to look at. You might be able to find a link for this. And if I asked you about this last time, I'm sorry. But there's Krishlam, I think they're calling it. So if maybe you find a link about that, there's a complex that's being built, or I think it actually was unveiled in March, so maybe last month. So, and it might have been on 322, which is that, dreaded skull and bones number. But anyway, there's a complex with a synagogue, church, and mosque all on the same property. And the aim is to try and, I think this is kind of piggybacking on the Abraham Accords, where they're trying to join those religions together and you know, unify everything under one religion. So it'll be interesting to kind of see where that goes. And I would suggest watching the Pope in regards to that as well, because he'll probably represent like the Christian element. You might see this Josiah ben David character that we keep hearing about. He could represent the Jewish element in the synagogue, and then there would be, you know, probably somebody from the Muslim world in the third church there, or who knows. Just something to keep your eyes on. But yeah, we're the temple now, so something to consider. As of 2017, you know, there was that assault. Now they're coming after us. So charagma is being implemented, and charagma was implemented during the time of Antiochus Epiphanes. You'll probably see charagma again if you look at the Roman destruction in 70 AD. So just because something's happened already doesn't mean it's not going to happen again, because oftentimes these events repeat. So I think it's very dangerous to think that it's already happened, because it blinds you to the possibility that it'll happen again. And when these things do happen, they happen so fast that if you wait for the signs that you're thinking you're going to see, it's already too late at that point. So that's just something that, like, for instance, put yourself in the shoes of somebody in the Pharaonic Egypt scenario, where, you know, you're being told to do these things, like with the lamb's blood, for instance, but maybe somebody that didn't have faith would be like, well, I'm going to wait and see what happens, you know, and then the night the Passover occurs, the angel of death goes over your house. If you didn't put the blood on your door, your child would be dead, you know. So that's just something to consider. I think we should already be looking for the exit, so to speak. Because it does talk about a second Exodus in Isaiah 11, and that hasn't been fulfilled. So it says a second time he'll blow a mighty wind over the Euphrates, which, by the way, is drying up, and that he'll make it dry shod for his people to go over it again. So I think that that's something to consider, is that's not yet been fulfilled. Sorry, I'm missing the chat.
Don't worry, it was some back and forth. I just want Fatty Debs, or Foddy Debs, however you say, to know that I asked your question out loud, and that is what Joshua was answering. So I hope it was sufficient. Hope you were listening. Let's move on.
Oh, well, anyway, but yeah, I understand that it has some ringing to the past, and that's the thing. These things do rhyme. But again, I wouldn't say that it was true for them then, yes, but I think it's going to be true for us again. And that's what we're going to be talking about here when we hit Revelation 6:6. We're going to see some of these elements cropping up. How many more Psalms? I think we got till 9. So was it my turn? I think chapter 6 was for me, right?
Yeah, your turn.
This is an awe-inspiring prayer for one who is ill, to pray that God heal him, body and soul. An ailing person who offers this prayer devoutly and with a broken heart is assured that God will accept his prayer. For the conductor with an instrumental music, for the 8th-stringed harp, a psalm by David. Lord, do not punish me in your anger, nor chastise me in your wrath. Be gracious to me, O Lord, for I languish away. Heal me, O Lord, for my bones tremble in fear. My soul is panic-stricken in you, O Lord. How long before you help? Relent, O Lord, deliver my soul. Save me for the sake of your kindness, for there is no remembrance of you in death. Who will praise you in the grave? I am weary from sighing. Each night I drench my bed. I melt my couch with my tears. My eye has grown dim from vexation, worn out by all my oppressors. Depart from me, all you evildoers, for the Lord has heard the sound of my weeping. The Lord has heard my supplication. The Lord accepts my prayer. All my enemies will be shamed and utterly terrified. They will then repent and be shamed for a moment. Only for a moment will they be shamed, because I will forgive them and never again mention their deeds. Interesting. So that's a forgiveness element there. You want to read chapter 7?
You know I do. All right, chapter 7. Do not rejoice. I just hit my knee. Oh, I'm
sorry to
breathing
hear
for just
that.
a second. Hold on. Oh, live. It's so
That
fun.
happened to my mother today when we were hiking. She hit her knee on a tree.
Yeah, I was dumb. All right. Chapter 7. Do not rejoice if God causes your enemy to suffer, just as the suffering of the righteous is not pleasant. David therefore defends himself intensely before God, maintaining that he did not actively harm Saul. He did not actively harm Saul. In fact, Saul precipitated his own harm while David's intentions were only for the good. Verse 1. In Shigayon, would you click the little one so we can see what that is?
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. This refers either to a musical instrument or to a mistake committed by David in recognition of which this psalm was written. Okay?
What? All right, that's interesting. Thank you for mentioning that.
By David, which he sang to the Lord concerning Cush and the Benjamite. I put my trust in you, Lord, my God. Deliver me from all my pursuers and save me, lest he tear my soul like a lion, crush me with none to rescue. Lord, my God, if I have done this, if there is wrongdoing in my hands, if I have rewarded my friends with evil or oppressed those who hate me without reason, then let the enemy pursue and overtake my soul. Let him trample my life to the ground and lay my glory in the dust forever. Arise, O Lord, in your anger. Lift yourself up in fury against my foes. Stir me to mete out the retribution which you commanded. When the assembly of nations surrounds you, remove yourself from it and return to the heavens. The Lord will mete out retribution upon the nations. Judge me, O Lord, according to my righteousness and my integrity. Let the evil of the wicked come to an end, but establish the righteous. O righteous God, searcher of hearts and minds. I rely on God to be my shield. Again, shield.
Mm-hmm.
He who saves the upright of heart. God is the righteous judge, and the Almighty is angered every day. Because he does not repent, he sharpens his sword, the sword of the Spirit, bends his bow, and makes it ready. He has prepared instruments of death for him. His arrows will be used on the pursuers. Indeed, he conceives iniquity, is pregnant with evil schemes, and gives birth to falsehood. He digs a pit, digs it deep, only to fall into the trap he laid. His mischief will return upon his own head. His violence will come down upon his own skull. I will praise the Lord according to his righteousness and sing the name of the Lord Most High.
Well, that's a great spot to end because he's talking about singing the name of the Lord Most High. So maybe we should read the Song of Moses now. And you dropped that link earlier. Maybe you can drop it again and I'll...
Let's tell Jackie the link you just dropped is where we're reading from. Right? Did you just drop that for Jackie?
Yeah, she was asking, so I figured that was what she meant.
Do you want me to... I dropped that link a while back. Did you want me to find it again for this song?
Yeah, you may as well, because it'll be like a timestamp thing, I guess.
Okay, give me a second. Stall!
Oh, well, I'll just go ahead and sing the Song of Moses.
Well, I want to find it. Hold on.
Well, I mean, I do have it. I can... All right. Well, I heard somebody, I don't know how to drive a standard, and they told me that you stall when you shift into the higher gears and you don't have your RPMs right. So I guess
I have it.
Stalled long enough. That's just the last time I heard the word stall. It was a couple days ago. Anyway, so that was the completion of the Tehillim. And somebody asked what we read last week. I almost think it was some of the first Psalms because they were sounding kind of familiar.
I would think if you go back, not just to our video, but if you go back in that Chabad, won't it show the day of the week prior?
Yeah, good idea. Sorry, I didn't even think about that. So that would have been, let's see, last Friday? So that would have been the 25th.
Friday or Saturday? Can't remember. Friday. It was Friday.
That says. Oh, hold on. Somebody's calling me. Make sure it's not a client. Oh. It's my friend calling about Bible. Hold on a second.
My turn to stall.
Can you go ahead and read?
Yes, I will read. Exodus chapter 15, starting with verse 1. Then sang Moses and the children of Israel this song unto the Lord, and spake, saying, I will sing unto the Lord, for he hath triumphed gloriously. The horse and his rider hath he thrown into the sea. The Lord is my strength and song. He is become my salvation. He is my God, and I will prepare him an habitation. My father's God, and I will exalt him. The Lord is a man of war. The Lord is his name. Pharaoh's chariots and his host hath he cast into the sea. His chosen captains also are drowned in the Red Sea. The depths have covered them. They sank into the bottom as a stone. Thy right hand, O Lord, is become glorious in power. Thy right hand, O Lord, hath dashed in pieces the enemy. And in the greatness of thine excellency, thou hast overthrown them that rose up against thee. Thou sentest forth thy wrath, which consumed them as stubble. And with the blast of thy nostrils the waters were gathered together. The floods stood upright as a heap, and the depths were congealed in the heart of the sea. The enemy said, I will pursue, I will overtake, I will divide the spoil. My lust shall be satisfied upon them. I will draw my sword. My hand shall destroy them. Thou didst blow with thy wind. The sea covered them. They sank as lead in the mighty waters. Who is like unto thee, O Lord, among the gods? Who is like thee, glorious in holiness, fearful in praises, doing wonders? Thou stretchest out thy right hand, the earth swallowed them. Thou in thy mercy hast led forth the people which thou hast redeemed. Thou hast guided them in thy strength and unto thy holy habitation. The people shall hear and be afraid. Sorrow shall take hold on the inhabitants of Palestina. Then the dukes of Edom shall be amazed. The mighty men of Moab, trembling, shall take hold upon them. All the inhabitants of Canaan shall melt away. Fear and dread shall fall upon them by the greatness of thine arm, and they shall be as still as a stone, till thy people pass over, O Lord, till the people pass over, which thou hast purchased. Thou shalt, I'm so sorry, I'm not done.
Sorry.
Verse 17. Thou shalt bring them in and plant them in the mountain of thine inheritance, in the place, O Lord, which thou hast made for thee to dwell in the sanctuary, O Lord, which thy hands have established. The Lord shall reign forever and ever. For the horse of Pharaoh went in with his chariots and with his horsemen into the sea, and the Lord brought again the waters of the sea upon them. But the children of Israel went on dry land in the midst of the sea. And Miriam the prophetess, the sister of Aaron, took a timbrel in her hand, and all the women went out with her with timbrels and with dances. And Miriam answered them, Sing ye to the Lord, for he hath triumphed gloriously. The horse and his rider hath he thrown into the sea.
That was the part right there that I was really wanting to talk about. Let me see if I can. Somebody was asking what psalm we did last week, so it just occurred to me. Since last week we were actually at the end of the year, so that was Pisces, the feet. So we were actually really deep into the Psalms, it seems. I don't think by no means is this the last, but at that point in time we were at chapter 107. And then so that's why we restarted the Psalms today, because this is now the head of the year. So pretty cool. Thank you for asking that question, because I didn't make that connection until just now. And since we're on that topic, the part where it says, the horse and the rider he has thrown into the sea, the Lord is my strength and my song, and he has become my salvation. He is my God, and I will praise him, my father's God, and I will exalt him. The Lord is a warrior. The Lord is his name. This sounds a lot like Isaiah chapter 12, which if you could maybe find that, you'll see that it sounds a lot like this song of deliverance that you just read. But when I sang that actually earlier, and when I did that, it caused me to remember something. So I would encourage folks to sing the scriptures whenever you can. I think it kind of adds something to it. But it reminded me of this part in Genesis 49, which I guess we can kind of share this out of sequence, because I was thinking we would maybe talk about it later. But anyway, we'll go ahead and talk about it now. So again, just to kind of give it context, then Moses and the Israelites sang the song to the Lord. I will sing to the Lord, for he is highly exalted. The horse and his rider he is thrown into the sea. The Lord is my strength and my song, and he has become my salvation. He is my God, and I will praise him, my father's God, and I will exalt him. The Lord is a warrior, the Lord is his name. I know I didn't sing very well. I should have taken my time. But I would encourage you to do that. So that part there where he talks about throwing the horse and the rider, he's throwing them into the sea. Well, let's go back to Genesis 49 when Isaac is blessing all of his sons. So what's it say here? Dan shall judge his people as one of the tribes of Israel. Dan shall be a serpent by the way, an adder in the path that biteth the horse's heels, so that his rider shall fall backward. I have waited for thy salvation, O Lord. So what do we see in the song of salvation? But a horse and a rider being thrown into the sea. Well, we get a little extra detail there about this backward falling. It doesn't say where. Well, but there it says the sea, right? So this could be a reference to the first horse in Revelation 6, the rider on the white horse, or something like that. Could be this person here, perhaps. And so what came first was the corona, right? So the white horse rider had a crown. Well, maybe Dan is whom causes this character to be thrown into the sea. So would this be a beast? Now stay with me here. If he's thrown into the sea, is that the beast from the sea, right? And so what's the corona connected to is the charagma, which is the mark. So I think this kind of ties together really well. Especially when you think about the sequence of events since then. So we had the man-child born from Revelation 12:1 on 9/23/2017. So we had the man-child being born, and then in the very next couple of verses after 12:1, we have the dragon pursuing the man-child with 10 heads and 7 coronas. So what comes 2 short years after that? Well, coronas. And, even though it goes all the way through the alphabet, again, we've only really heard about, could anybody name more than 7 that you've heard about? So it's food for thought, something to think about. And then that's, of course, tied to the charagma. So what's after the corona? Well, the rumors of war and the red horse of war is a great potential right now. What other horse is a great potential right now? The black horse. And that's the one we're going to read about here in Revelation 6:6. And then, of course, followed by death. So anyway, let's move on here. Oh, wait, I shared that, right? Oh, this is the picture I wanted to accompany that. So this is the symbol for Dan. So if you go back to Genesis 49, Dan shall be a serpent by the way, an adder in the path that biteth the horse's heel, so that his rider shall fall backward. So I'll just share that in the chat real quick. Oh my, that's a lot more characters than I thought. Sorry.
Usually what I do is I copy and paste the whole thing. Then if it's too many characters, I copy half of it, cut it out, and then paste it right.
Oh, I know, but there's just too many. And then here's the part from the Song of Moses, just for convenience sake. I wanted to share these. Okay, so and that was from Genesis 49. All right, so there's something to consider. And then here's the text that accompanies that. So you got this a set of scales right here, right? So this is to measure grain. So we're going to be talking about that in Revelation 6, because you can't very well measure. Here it is. And I heard a voice in the midst of the four beasts say, a measure of wheat for a penny, and 3 measures of barley for a penny. And see thou hurt not the oil and the wine. So you can't well measure without a set of scales. And what do you see here is the symbol of Dan, but a serpent on a set of scales. So I think that's really interesting, especially when you consider what was his name? The writing on the wall. I think it was Nebuchadnezzar's son, I think. But anyway, it was many, many tekel uparsin. The hand of God wrote on the wall that phrase, and that means you've been weighed and measured and found wanting. So I think that's also a really cool Belshazzar. There
Belshazzar.
And see, that was after the sacking of the temple that we were talking about a little earlier from the chat. So thanks again, Fadi Debs, for bringing that up. So when they carted all the silver and gold out of the temple, that's another reference there. So you'd measure grain in these scales, and the serpent kind of represents Dan here. So I think this is a really strong correlation, and we're going to talk about the penny. Man, I'm really getting off track here because we got some Torah portions, but this flows so well. I want to go ahead and just show this real quick, because we got the wheat penny here as associated with Abraham, and Abe comes up in the story of the Exodus also, except it's the first part of a demon's name, and that's who's trapped in the Red Sea. That's who possessed Pharaoh and his army to pursue after the Hebrews. And so when the sea was parted, it fell down on top of the troops, and that entity as well is trapped there. So I think these 4 horsemen whom are in the Euphrates, and they're trapped in these rivers and stuff. So we should really be paying attention to when these rivers are drying up, because these are some of the major signs that we should be watching for. And of course, the Euphrates is drying up, and now we're starting to see this wheat penny theme, which really started with the evergreen thing. Remember last year we talked about the evergreen cargo boats and all the shipping containers, and they were blocking traffic on highways and waterways.
There's another one that's having problems right now. It's stuck somehow, but not the same way that one was. I didn't memorize the details. I just glanced over it, but yeah.
So I won't get too far ahead, but I just wanted to show that, when you look at the wheat penny right here in relation to Revelation 6:6, it talks about the measure of a wheat for a penny. I mean, what are the odds that we have a wheat penny, right? And 3 measures of barley for a penny. Now, remember, the barley harvest is what would be going on right now. So this, for you to even have any barley, signifies a certain point in time throughout the year. So this would be when they were going to the temple for first fruits. So this measurement could be occurring at the time of the first fruits harvest. Something to consider. Now, wheat, I'm not sure what season that is, but perhaps that's coinciding with this. And you wouldn't be using old wheat or old barley, you'd be using new. So this could be an indication of a time of year. Also, there's new oil, new wine, these types of other marks. They're not feasts in of themselves, but there was times when you'd replenish all the things that were used for the temple. Oh, and Fadi Debs mentioned up here the Matthew verse. So yeah, he says, pray that your departure not be in the winter. Exactly. So this is that dark winter that they keep harping about. Remember, that was a big theme last year too, and we all thought, oh, this was going to be the dark winter. Well, I think it'll probably be the winter coming. It's going to be the dark winter, because now we're going to be getting into that when we talk about Ukraine. They're threatening to shut off the gas to Europe and things like that. So I think the winter that's coming is going to be when the grip really starts to tighten. And we're going to see this dark winter scenario really start to unfold. And this is going to really come to life. So this, like I've said before, I really think we're experiencing a lot of lasts right now, whether we realize it or not. Not that we should miss Babylon, but I'm just saying, a lot of people are being tempted because they still want to hang on to Babylon. It's really kind of driving that charagma mark thing. So I would just encourage people, this is not going to last forever. It's just going to get really, really, really intense for a short period of time. And then after that will be the rest. So let's get back to the Torah portion. I'm so sorry for getting off track. Leviticus chapter 13. Because again, these coincide with the times of the year, so I don't want to skip them because they often have little nuggets of wisdom. Leviticus chapter 13. Then the Cohen shall look, this is the priest, Aaron's folk. Then the Cohen shall look at it after the lesion has been washed, and behold, the lesion has not changed in appearance, and the lesion has not spread. It is unclean. You shall burn it in the fire. It is a penetrating lesion on the worn or new. It seems like we've come to the middle of something here. So I'm not really sure what's going on here. But there are some commentary here to add to it. And then it says, continues here in verse 56. But as the Cohen looks at it after it has been washed, and behold, the lesion has become dimmer, he shall tear it out of the garment, out of the leather, or out of the warp or woof. So he's talking about the afflicted area of the garment. I don't know if that's referring to your skin.
I was going to say garment could be skin.
Yeah, because remember tailor, we talked about the meaning of that name. Tailor means to put on a garment of flesh, right? So it could be that they're referring to the skin. Verse 57, and if it appears again on the garment, the warp or woof threads, well, maybe it's actually a garment, or any leather article, it is a recurrent growth of the lesion. You shall burn it in the fire, the article upon which the lesion is found. This is really interesting. Well, I do know there's a lot of instances where when they would conquer a people's or a principality that was, these people are all possessed by a certain spirit, right? And he'd say, all right, don't touch anything, don't take anything. It could be kind of an interesting reference to, that type of phenomena where the fomites, remember we've talked about the Fomorians and the giant's blood being like vectors for disease. Garments could maybe get these things on them, and then they would carry, kind of like how smallpox took out the Native Americans in a sense. You could kind of think of that as, like this entity's on these blankets kind of thing, causes sickness to spread. Verse 58, but the garment, the warp or the wool of any leather article which is washed and the lesion disappears from them shall be immersed a second time, and then it shall be clean. This is the law of lesion of Tetzerath on a woolen or linen garment, warp or woof threads, or any leather article to render it clean or unclean. Seems to me the last time we were reading, it was talking about the immersion of garments and washing them, and how I think we had kind of commented on how that maybe is a reference to baptism as well. Like when we put our garment into the water and wash it, it's kind of mirroring these rituals of purity and purification. And there's, I think for marriage, there's something called a can't remember the name of the pool, but there's like a pool that the woman's supposed to immerse herself in as well. And I think that takes place each month as well. And this was something we didn't have to necessarily read, but there's Parshat Tesaria. This was another supplemental type text because it's so auspicious this time of year that there's extra readings added. So for the sake of time, we don't have to cover that right now. But if what we've been talking about is interesting, you may want to look at some of these articles here, because this gives a lot of insight into the beginning of the feast days, which really makes the fall feasts interesting because Judgment Day is in the 7th month, Tishri. So, after the harvest in summertime, comes the Judgment Day, when everything's weighed and measured, So, and of course, if you look at the Mazzaroth, or the zodiacal wheel in the sky, you often see Libra associated with a set of scales. So this would be at like the end of the year when everything's measured and put into the stores. Your fruits of your labor are measured. So again, why I wouldn't encourage anybody to wait for signs to appear before they start doing the labor of the Lord, because we're to be found working. So when that day comes, when the Father and the Son come back to the vineyard to inspect it, if we're found to be an idle shepherd, thinking that the Lord wasn't ever going to return, then he'll find us idle. And so we need to be laboring and be found laboring. And remember, the payment is a penny. I think that what was that, Matthew 20, Aaron?
What was
so I think the penny was a wage. I think in Matthew 20, parable of the vineyard, I think the wage payment for the laborers was a penny. Even those that were hired in the 11th hour. So again, we go back to this Revelation 6, where it's talking about a penny, right? So how do pennies relate to the temple service? I mean, maybe they don't, but they're being weighed against a penny, it would seem. So your barley's weighed against a penny, the wheat's weighed against a penny, and so that's why I wanted to talk a little bit about the wheat penny. So now that we've read that from Revelation, I wanted to read a little bit more detail about the wheat penny and why it's on there. So maybe we'll discover something together. All right, so let's see here. We can start. Let's just start at the beginning here.
Yes, you're right. It does say penny. I don't want to miss something. It does say penny.
I'm sorry. What was it?
You're correct. It does say penny in the scripture. In Matthew 20, chapter 20, verse 9. And when they came that were hired, about the 11th hour, they received every man a penny.
Yeah, exactly. See? So it's really wild that this stuff ties together. Would you like to read this part about the wheat penny? Yeah, I highlighted it. You can read the first section, and I'll read the second section.
All right. In 1904, President Theodore Roosevelt wrote to his Secretary of Treasury, Leslie Mortier Shaw, complaining that U.S. coinage lacked artistic merit, and inquiring if it would be possible to engage a private artist such as sculptor Augustus St. Gaudens. And if nobody knows, the St. Gaudens is also on the gold ounce that is commonly used as like a $20 gold ounce to prepare a new coin design. At Roosevelt's instruction, the Mint hired St. Gaudens to redesign the cent. See, that's interesting. I didn't know it. So that's the same guy that designed the gold $20 piece. To redesign the cent and the 4 gold pieces, the double eagle, that's the one I was talking about, the eagle, the half eagle, and the quarter eagle. As the designs of those pieces had remained the same for 25 years, they could be changed without an act of Congress. The Indian head cent, which is a nickel, which the Lincoln cent replaced, had been introduced in 1859. St. Gaudens originally conceived a flying eagle design Oh, that Indian head, that's a different penny. Okay. St. Gaudens originally conceived a flying eagle design for the cent, but at Roosevelt's request developed it for the double eagle after learning that by law an eagle could not appear on the cent. Writer and friend Witter Bynner recalled that in January 1907, St. Gaudens was seriously ill with cancer and was carried to his studio for 10 minutes a day to critique the work of his assistants on current projects, including the cent. St. Gaudens sent Roosevelt a design in February for the obverse, which is just the front side of the coin, of the cent showing a figure of liberty. Roosevelt suggested that the addition of a Native American war bonnet stating, "I don't see why we should not have conventional headdress, a purely American type for the liberty figure." In May 1907, Roosevelt instructed that the Indian design be developed for the eagles instead. St. Gaudens was by then in declining health, and he died August 3rd, 1907, without having submitted another design for the cent.
So wait a second. What liberty figure is he talking about?
Probably the liberty figure on the gold coin. Oh, no, that's
snap.
not what I would... If I had to guess, I was wrong.
Here we go. Libertas is the Roman goddess and personification of liberty. She became a politicized figure in the late Republic, featured on coins supporting the Populares faction, and later those of the assassins of Julius Caesar. That took place at the Ides of March, which was a time right before now. Nonetheless, she sometimes appears on coins, but from the imperial period. Well, that's interesting, because I was trying to think, how did this make sense? I couldn't quite figure it out, but now I understand. So remember, we covered this a long time ago, but this is the Janus penny that shows Goddess Liberty on it from 1776. And on the obverse, or reverse, whichever.
The reverse is the back and the obverse is the front.
So I guess this would be the reverse. State of Massachusetts, which is not spelled out. Or maybe
it says Massa.
Yeah. And then 1/2 here. So this is like the half penny. And then the D, I think, would be the mint. So probably the Delaware mint, I would imagine.
Yeah, D now is Denver. And like S for San Francisco and W for West Point.
So here's the Janus Trifons, three-faced figure, and your Goddess Liberty was on the obverse side of the halfpenny. So let's see what that date. Is there a 1776 on this page anywhere? Nope, doesn't even show up. So let's see, 177 doesn't even show up. Yeah. So that was like the precursor to the penny as we even know it as is. But see, this Liberty thing popped up. So it seems that they wanted to use an Indian headdress on her. Is that what it says here? I don't see why we should not have a conventional headdress of purely American type for the Liberty figure. Okay, it doesn't necessarily say an Indian headdress then. But, oh wait, yeah, suggested a Native American war bonnet. That's right. What I thought. Yes. So it was supposed to have a crown of feathers, essentially, was supposed to be on her head. So that's so interesting. And I can't tell what she's holding. Do you know what she's holding? In one hand, it's the rod.
Right, I can't. It's very small. Don't you have a bigger version?
Yeah, but it's not any clearer here. I can't really tell. She might be holding scales. Could be a bag,
like a bag of silver. I don't know.
Well, it could be scales. That would be something to consider. It's because the law lady, or oftentimes you see her holding scales and a sword or something. So maybe it's like the rod and then the scales of justice. Something to look into. So anyway, just wanted to touch on this wheat penny thing. Something to look at. And did we? Okay, I don't think I shared the actual link here. So the relationship here to Abraham Lincoln, who, by the way, is also on the $5 bill. And what I just found out recently, I watched somebody's video on the I Pet Goat analysis they were doing, and I tell you, there's a lot packed in there. But the Draco character, excuse me, he's got the one eye. We talked about the one eye symbolism in Zechariah 11:17, and that is the idle shepherds. So the laborers that are not laboring in the garden, the anointed who are not laboring, or they're leading others astray. So like your one eye symbolism that you see a lot of with these celebrities, they've become anointed and then are leading people astray. They're not leading them to God the Father. So they're it's kind of weird to see them using the symbolism and seeing what they're actually doing is like purposefully becoming idol shepherds. It's really bizarre. So anyway, Abe. What's Abe referring to? Abraham, Abe. Well, Abraham was the father of the nations, right? And he was in Ur, where they practiced Sumerian. So again, while we're going to talk about the Sumerian meaning for work being avad, and to work for is worship. So you are laboring for your God. Whether you realize it or not, you're working for a spirit. So that's why we need to choose the Father, because then we do our labor for him. It frees us from spiritual captivity. And so it all helps it make a lot more sense within the context of laboring in the vineyard for the Lord. So even Abraham was taken out of spiritual captivity, and he labored for the Lord. And then his people and his seed were multiplied because of that covenant and blessing that was shared between him and Jehovah. So the whole concept of rapture and being taken out by the strong right arm of the Lord, it all goes back to like Abraham again. But we do see another Abe. Well, can you think of some other things about Abraham that maybe pop into your mind just to gain some more associations, by the way?
Abraham of the Bible?
Or just Abe. What does Abraham make you think of, like in pop culture or anything like that?
Always got to put me on the spot. I don't know.
Sorry, I just thought I thought you might have already been thinking of something.
No.
Well, in The Simpsons, Homer's dad is Abraham. Something to think about. There's a character in Hellboy named Abe Sapien. He's a fish man, which would be Ichtho Sapien. And this is how you'd spell that. Excuse me, Ichthyo. They call him Abe Sapien for short. And I can't think of any other Abes right now. Oh, it sounds kind of like Abel from the Bible as well. But anyway, so to add to the Abe thing, so remember in the Exodus, they were being pursued by Pharaoh and his armies. Well, this Testament of Solomon kind of explains that and colors it a little bit. So King Solomon, when they had the original temple, the one that was first destroyed by Antiochus Epiphanes, in this case, the first temple, not the first in the wilderness, but the first stone temple. And mind you, this one was not made with the hands of men. I think it only took, how long did it take? It was like maybe 3-4 years. I can't remember exactly. But it was not very many years that it took. Solomon used the spirits. He bound them all into work for the Lord and built the temple the first time. And then the second time, it took the servants of God 46 years to build the temple, which much, much longer time. And so anyway, when the first temple was standing, the one Solomon presided from, he had several conversations with various of the spirits that were fallen. And so just to add some context to the one that was actually chasing the children. So again, this might be who we deal with in the future, chasing the children of God. The man-child mentioned in Revelation is pursued by a dragon, right? Well, this could be a possible candidate for that. So anyway, just to add some context. So let's continue here. So 123, because sorry, I can't highlight it. It's not as clear when I do that. All right, saying this, I laid stress on him and the flask. Oh, sorry. He had summoned whom is called Epipas to talk to him, who is a wind entity. And so he's talking to him, and he tells him about this Abe Zeppiboth. So we see Abe. Oh, sorry, let me find it again. Abe. There you go. All right, and so I, Solomon, questioned the other spirit which came up from the pillar of the depth of the Red Sea. So again, this is where the miracle was performed by Jehovah, where he splits the sea and his people go over dry shod. Okay, it says, and I said to him, who art thou, and what calls thee, and what is thy business? For I hear many things about thee. And this demon answered, I, O King Solomon, am called Abe Zephibod. It says, I am a descendant of the archangel. Once I sat in the first heaven, of which the name is Amaluth. And then it says, I then am a fierce spirit and winged, and with a single wing. So if you ever see the one-winged angel symbolism, this is a direct reference to this character. So which could be the one eye too. So this could very well be him. Okay, continues here, plotting against every spirit under heaven. I was present when Moses went in before Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and I hardened his heart. I am he whom Enans and Iambres evoked homing with Moses in Egypt. So I guess these two characters were the two priests of Pharaoh. So remember when they summoned serpents, and then Moses, or excuse me, maybe it was Aaron, who threw his rod down.
No.
And pardon?
I think it was Moses, but anyway, go ahead.
Well, him and his brother were before Pharaoh, and so these two magi of the Pharaoh cast theirs down and created snakes. Well, when they cast theirs down, it consumed their serpents. So I'm assuming that these are the same two guys that they were dealing with then. So anyway, it says that these two guys invoked homing with Moses in Egypt. I am he who fought against Moses and with wonders and signs. See, yeah. So the serpent thing took place with this guy right here. So that's the one-winged angel, possibly the one-eyed deal. And so I just wanted to share that we don't often get such great detail in some of these stories, but there it is. Oh, sorry, there's a little bit more here that might be worth reading. I said therefore to him, how wast thou found in the Red Sea? And he answered, in the exodus of the sons of Israel, I hardened the heart of Pharaoh, and I excited his heart and that of his ministers, and I caused them to pursue after the children of Israel. And Pharaoh followed me with all the Egyptians. Then I was present there, and we followed together. And we all came up upon the Red Sea, and it came to pass when the children of Israel had crossed over, that's Eber, the name Hebrew refers to that, crossing over. So when they had crossed over, the water returned and hid all the host of the Egyptians and all their might. And I remained in the sea, being kept under this pillar. But when Epipas came, being sent by thee, shut up in the vessel of flask, he fetched me up to thee. Quite interesting then, we see that his tomb was where the waters had been parted. So he himself is a testament to God's glory, declaring that this miracle had taken place, right? It's really interesting. So I just wanted to share that because that would have occurred around this time of year within the next couple of weeks, but many, many years ago. So when you're reading about these stories, imagine, there is a spiritual element at play here, and the Lord's strong right arm subdues these other spirits. And that's the whole concept of rapture, is that he can come in and just push him around. He was like, hey, these are my first fruits. You can't have them. Buzz off. Well, buzz off. That's kind of funny because this character, Abe, his father is Beelzebub, the king of flies, or prince of flies, or whatever. So buzz off, indeed. So anyway, just wanted to share that real quick. And here, now we're finally getting into some of the meat here of why this applies to now. So there's an article here that covers Ukraine. Now, Ukraine's referred to as the breadbasket of Europe. So what I wanted to focus in this article, was this. All right. And I tried to find a site that was in the context of, in the biblical context. So considering that the remark in the context of Ezekiel 38 and other prophecies, this person took this analysis even further. And they say, here's what I wrote more than 7 years ago. So this person was looking at this situation 7 years ago and had already thought the same thing. I think this article is actually from 2022. I could be wrong. Maybe it's more recent. Okay, so either way, it was 7 years ago, they're saying. Okay. Oh, did you want to read? Sorry, I've been talking a long time. Okay. Putin has long known that if Ukraine allied with Europe, it would significantly diminish his power. Now, by the way, I don't necessarily agree with any of the stuff that's being read. This is just their words. His goal is to resurrect the Soviet Empire. The architecture of that empire was built around Ukraine being part of it. Ukraine is the breadbasket of Russia. This is a phrase that you can find commonly on the internet, although most of the ones that had it were news articles. To this day, Russia's largest military base outside of its own borders is in Ukraine. Ukraine's actually where Russia began. It's so if you think about a seed germinating and becoming a large tree, well, Russia proper would be like the branches, whereas Ukraine would have actually be where the trunk and the seed and the roots would be. And I didn't ever realize that. I thought maybe Russia started and then Ukraine was just became a part of it. But from what I can gather, Ukraine's actually kind of like the parent. So even though it's called Little Russia, it's actually like the parent to Russia. So, and I didn't have time to get the link up about the bear. I think it maybe is in Daniel. The bear having ribs in its mouth. And so I kind of would it seems, and Russia's the bear, right? So the ribs in her mouth could be like these three countries that were taken from Russia. Like now we see Russia. That's the whole reason that they're in that area, is to take back Donbass, Luhansk, and Crimea. So while they're there taking these three ribs back, right, or their cubs, in a sense, perhaps, that's what's kind of inciting this war. And there's also the scripture. I can't think of which chapter it's in now, but we might have talked about it last week, putting hooks in the jaw to draw them into conflict. So we see that that's kind of happening now, and it's all taking place over the breadbasket of Russia, or the breadbasket of Europe. And we read a little bit, I think, last week about why that was, that Ukraine was considered this is because it has such rich, dark soil, and it grows copious amounts of crops. And so to have any destabilization take place there disrupts the entire food system, as it were. So I think it was Jackie that was talking about the petrodollar. Yeah. So, and then on 331, a little cicada reference there. So on 331, I think it was announced that Russia took their the reserve currency. They're no longer using the American dollar, and they went to the petro ruble, essentially. And you can still deal in other currencies, but you got to first open a bank account in Russia, and then you can trade in your own currency. And so in other words, everything has to run through their banks now. So these sanctions aren't really hurting Russia now because they also went to a gold standard for the ruble, I think. So they've been preparing for this for a long time, I think. So even though they might be a little bit isolated, this is still going to rock the economy because they could shut off gas to Europe. And then here you have the entire food system being disrupted there as well, not to mention the refugee crisis that's taking place, which, by the way, feeds the human trafficking problem around the world. So every time there's these wars, we talked about this in the past with Syria, the organ harvesting that takes place at the borders, all these fronts of non-governmental organizations known as NGOs, they'll get involved and act like they're helping these people, but some of them, were going into these hospitals and never leaving because they were just like euthanizing people. So really crazy stuff that's going on with war in general. But sorry, I just wanted to talk a little bit about why this, I think, is an issue and why we should be paying attention to it, because this would probably be the year, because now we're adding, and we already know the economy is a house of cards. They could have crashed it at any time if they just stop flooding it with fiat currency. So really, as soon as the printing presses stop, this is going to fall apart anyway. But now with the added political instability surrounding Ukraine, we know about the, do we got a code word for Biden's son? That's probably a censored
The hunter in the
topic.
woods?
Yeah, the hunter in the woods there, yeah. So that
Maybe
fella,
he's a bear hunter.
yeah, the bear hunter, he indeed had some connections with Ukraine. He had some connections with China. Very incriminating types of behavior. And, I could see that that's also probably why these moves are being made, because what better time, right? And so it's revealing a lot of corruption. We're finding out now there's bio labs planted all along the borders. So, maybe there'll be more of these illnesses being released, and that could just further spur the need for, the charagma, or, these lockdown measures and so on and so forth. So remember, there is that last horse of death. So they might just start releasing all sorts of things into the population. So I'd say getting out of the cities is a good idea. Couldn't be a better idea than ever right now. Okay, so in terms of who do you work for, right? So we've talked about this in the past. And then there's the text, I think, in Matthew chapter 7, maybe verse 18. It talks about you can't serve two masters. You either work for Mammon or the Lord. So Mammon would be collectively Satan. Any spirit other than Jehovah, you're serving Mammon. And so this is where this harvest is taking place around the wheat and the tares. So again, we can go back and compare wheat and tares to this kind of thing here. You're either wheat or tare, right? So, and remember, many tekel parson means you've been weighed and measured and found wanting, right? So were your labors worth the penny that you're paid in Matthew 20, right? Are you found laboring? Are you being fruitful? Are you thanking thanking our God rather for the blessings that are given unto you, and asking them in His name, thanking Him? Is He real to you? Are you trying to save people and lead them back to the Word? So there's just some things to consider. Like, are you using there's the parable of the talents. Are you using your skills, your God-given talent, to bring people to the Lord? Everybody's a part of the body of Christ. Some are a foot, some are a hand, some are an eye or a mouth. And so we're gifted with these abilities that when we come together and serve God together, we can lead others to the Lord. So I think these parables are really important and powerful because the celebrities become anointed, gain talent, but then they don't lead people to the Lord. And so that's emblematic of the Judas goat, which is a goat that's used to lead lambs to the slaughter. And then you have, by comparison, you have bellwether lambs, which are given a bell, and they lead the flock to the Father. So both are anointed, but one leads to the left-hand path of destruction, the broad way, and where everything's allowed. There's no rules. They just have a disdain for God the Father, and they don't want to follow his way, right? Then you have the right-hand path that they're leading to the Father. So I just find it all pretty interesting. And this also helps to explain why the elite or celebrities have such a fascination with ancient culture, because I think they have a very real understanding of what they're doing. And, I don't know, a lot of them seem to understand. I don't think all of them do. But I wanted to touch on this topic of the Anunnaki and the Sumerian traditions, because this really brings things into focus, because we've been in a world which has kind of forgotten this stuff, which is why when it comes back, we won't really be able to recognize it. Well, I think we can, but this is something that's very real. I mean, if you ever noticed, celebrities, a lot of times when they retire out of their labor, they usually start a company with their brand, right? So just like with corporations having brands, leading people into captivity, materialism, stuff like that, these celebrities will start. So I heard Chuck Norris had water, for instance. So, they develop brands of products to get into your homes, into your minds. And all these things become part of Babylon collectively, Mammon. And so our participation in that, we have to not be so engrossed with it and so obsessed and possessed by it that we are not willing to leave. And so, again, this whole focus of being put on the rapture here, which spirit are you working for, right? So the Anunnaki leaders found the new beings to meet their specifications and put them to work in the mines and elsewhere in their colonies, which included ancient Mesopotamia. The first men worked for their gods. Notice the fallen, like the many in this case. The Semitic word avad, which is today interpreted as worship, literally means to work for. That was the beginning of the relationship between men and gods. The first men did not worship their gods. They worked for them. And so Jehovah put an end to that by rapturing the Hebrews out of Egypt. So he was putting an end to that work and giving them rest from their labor, because they weren't even getting days off. They were working them 7 days a week. And if you read in, I think it was Exodus, they were increasing their labor even and giving them impossible quotas to meet. And it was at this peak oppression that they were raptured out and taken out. So anyway, I just wanted to highlight this really interesting concept right here, that when we see these analogies being made with working and laboring, that's really interchangeable with worship. So that was the point I wanted to make with that. Let me close a couple of these tabs to free up some RAM. And we might have covered everything, which is kind of rare.
That'd be great.
Well, maybe we went kind of long anyway. Oh no, we're right at 10 o'clock. Cool. Yeah, I only had one more thing to show.
Yeah, and you wanted me to play that video. Don't forget.
So, again, I know I rewind a lot back through time, but I just really want to emphasize that, right before 9/23/2017, which is, in my opinion, a fulfillment of Revelation 12:1, it was 33 days prior to that we had the first of two Great American Solar Eclipses. So on August 21st, 2017, we saw the penumbra of the eclipse shadow pass through 7 Salems. So 7 pieces, right? They shall cry peace and safety, and sudden destruction will come upon them. Kind of comes to mind from Thessalonians. Well, we're going to have the second one come in April 8th, 2024. And that'll be 7 years since this. So again, go to Ezekiel 9, and you can see that actually 9:4 to be specific, you can see that there's a focus being put on the temple, and that the Spirit of God, which is sevenfold in this case, manifests at the altar. And then it's the angel with the inkhorn goes through the city and marks all those sighing and crying about the abominations taking place in the land. So, think about that. Are you upset about the things you're seeing, with the trans agenda or whatever it might be, those types of things? Well, you're probably going to get marked as being like, hey, I'm not wanting to be part of this anymore. Please take me out of here, Jehovah. So they're marking the trees. Now, normally you'd mark trees to cut them down, but this is, again, there's so much sin in the land that it's more efficient. Because I was pondering this. Why are they marking the people they're saving and not the ones that they're going to destroy? Well, it's probably more efficient to mark the trees you're not going to cut down because those are the ones you're going to harvest, right? So again, we go back to that parable of the wheat and the tares. It talks about how tares were sown among the wheat, and the laborer talks to the master and says, "What are we going to do?" And he says, "Well, you wait till the time of the harvest, and you gather the wheat and burn the tares, and then you return them to the barn." So again, a reference to this first fruits time period, and the Exodus, of course, taking place in this time as well. So yes, I do think there's an emphasis placed on winter, but we still have, it's only 2022. We see that the last strain of Corona is due out 2023. And then 2024, when the second slash of the X comes through, that'll be a full 7 years. So I think that this could be the tribulation period in a sense, and that the testing is taking place, and we just got to hold out and don't be tempted to become part of the mammon system, because it's the threshing that'll be taking place, and then the winnowing, which is kind of taking place now too. And then the harvest is held in the hands of the Lord, right? And then comes the burning of the chaff. And it talks about, I can't remember the exact verse, but how the chaff is blown away with the wind, right? And of course, we see that same mighty wind as a theme in Revelation 6:13. Let me do that real quick. Revelation 6:13 talks about the mighty wind shaking the fig tree. So it was around the same time of August 21st, 2017. Well, I think 2018 is actually when the 70-year anniversary of Israel was. So this coincides with the parable of the fig tree, the mighty wind coming and shaking, the falling of the stars, which is figurative and literal. And so what do we see with the idol shepherds, the stars of our time? They're all falling, right? I think we're also going to see stars falling too, from the sky. Which is because if they're tied to stars in the sky, and then they're given influenza is influence for the stars. The stars themselves have influence, and they're influencing you to do everything but follow God, right? They're idol shepherds. So anyway, I think what's getting really happening here is they're being replaced, and it'll be God's people that take control, and then they'll be the ones influencing and leading people to God instead. So it's really quite an interesting thing that we're seeing happen here. But anyway, I just wanted to place great emphasis on this, because as we approach that date, it'll be interesting to see what unfolds between now and April 8th, 2024. And where that falls is in this same period of time. I mean, albeit it's only the second right now, but I would encourage you to maybe use that Chabad site to fast forward to, I don't have the link. Well, maybe we can just do that right now. I'm sorry, I know I'm going long, but if I can find that website real quick, we can just go ahead and do that. So since the computer's actually running okay, we can try it. Let's just fast forward and see what's going on that date. Okay, so 2023, 2024. So April 8th will be a Monday, and this will be what we could read to maybe fast forward a little bit. Oh, sorry, the chat kind of got messed up there, and I'm almost finished, Aaron. Sorry. And you probably get tired of me saying that, but okay. So this will be the Torah portion associated with that day. And oh, sorry, I didn't mean to click today. I meant to click the Tehillim. I was wanting to look at something else. Anyway, that gets you kind of close to the mark there. So April 8th, 2024, this would be the curriculum, the daily study here. Yeah, here's the Psalms associated with that day. So I just wanted to look at that. One more moment. And then I'll have the link. Okay, so here it is, 140 through 150, which is very similar to what we were reading last week. So anyway, this might give us a little bit of insight into what to be expecting when that second slash comes through. Oops. I guess I didn't close it, but here we go. Okay, yeah, let me close that now. And then so just to add some bookends onto that whole matter, here's another map that shows the first slash. This started at the 33rd state, Oregon, and exited here at South Carolina, and I have those right here. There's another annular eclipse coming through 2023. So next year, this is October 14th, 2023. This is around the same time that we're going to see the Omega strain, the last strain, the Z, which we're seeing Z's on the back of these tanks too. So I think it's all kind of, and we've heard about the Omega war games in Israel. So these themes are cropping up leading up to this eclipse here. So I'm not trying to be one of these doom and gloom folks, but I also think, as a watchman, we're literally watching everything, and so I would be remiss, as they say, not to say something. And they do seem to cross right here in Indiana or Missouri. I think it's Missouri, actually. So if you are interested about where that's meeting, there's probably a little bit of symbolism there. And somebody told me what it was called, and I cannot remember, but the town that they cross in is named something really interesting. So I'd encourage you to look at that. But yeah, here's a close-up where it went over Salem. So this was the first of the 7 Salems that it went over. From Oregon. I was totally unaware of these other ones at first. And then the last one, South Carolina. So this Oregon, 33rd state added to the Union. The eclipse occurred 33 days before Revelation 12:1 was fulfilled on 9/23/2017. So it begins at the 33rd state and then exits at the 33rd parallel, 33 degrees latitude. Sorry, I'm so tongue-tied with all the synchronicity. So it's hard to ignore, is what I'm trying to say. Sometimes you can just say, oh, it's just an eclipse or whatever. But some of this stuff seems like, well, our country was so meticulously planned. It seems like this stuff was planned so far into the future, or God truly had a hand in it to provide us signs to pay attention to. So that was the last point I wanted to make. So thank you for bearing with me and letting me ramble on. So yes, please pay attention to the pennies.
I'm going to finish with a video that you wanted me to show. So
yeah. Oh, and I had one last thought. The Statue of Liberty, who they're depicting on this penny, basically is the Statue of Liberty. And they wanted her to have that Indian war headdress. Well, the version we got has the spikes. So maybe those are really supposed to represent like feathers. And another thought, we know the Statue of Liberty today as being green because it's oxidized copper. So I wonder if any historians are out there, maybe do some research to see when the Statue of Liberty first came from France and was assembled, was it copper colored or was it green to begin with? So there's some food for thought to think about. I mean, it would probably only been copper colored for so many years before it turned green, right? Something to think about, especially being on the sea like that with all that salt water, it probably oxidized really fast. But yeah, in the video here, this is just a Pepe, one of the newest Pepe compilations. It's very well done, pretty chill music, but it starts out with a Pepe version of Moses splitting the Red Sea. So I thought, well, that's really timely to share for this time of year. So I hope you all enjoy. So. Mini meows. Shabbat shalom. Meow.
I can see I need to change my microphone again, so bear with me for just a moment. I had some kind of echo earlier that I'm not sure what is going on. Gosh, I hope I can figure this out. Let's see.